I'll just ask a few questions to Dominik and then I'll open it to you. I'm sure you have many questions. I was wondering why you decided to revisit the period of the Gilets jaunes demonstrations in 2018, because at the time it was really a big movement in France and now it seems to be quite far away. I suppose it was a bit obliterated by COVID and other world and French events.
Yes, well, I mean, my first interest for this project was really to talk about the IGPN, the police of the police, and to imagine a police officer investigating other police officers. But I also knew from the beginning, because they also, I mean, they investigate police violence, but they also investigate cases of police corruption, which I was less interested in because it stays inside the institution of the police, whereas police violence during demonstrations is also is in relation, I mean, talks about the relationship between police and citizens, and which I was interested in. And when we started to work on the project, it was there were demonstrations, but it was about the retirement reform. And but I knew that I wanted to set it during the Yellow Vest movement. And well, one of the reasons was exactly what you're saying, that it had been obliterated by the COVID, and that nobody in 2022, 23, nobody talked about it anymore, even if that had been a very strong and completely unexpected movement which came out of the blue and which made the government panic and react with a very strong repression. And at the beginning, nobody knew really what to think about that movement, I mean, me included, because it started off with high petrol prices and protests against that. But after a while, I understood that there was much more to that it was also about the disconnection between Paris as a very centralized place of power and whole areas of France in more rural areas or small cities where the people felt that they didn't count and that their problems were not taken into consideration by the government, and so they wanted to be seen, and so that's why they put on high-V vests. I mean, it was also to be seen, and that all those were quite legitimate demands, and then the COVID came, and then nobody talked about it anymore, although even if the problems were still there. And I found that quite intriguing that everybody pretended that like this had never happened, even if it was part now of French history. And I felt it was interesting to, through that film and that police investigation, to question again what that movement really was about.
And I was wondering, it's very documented fiction. I think you spent some time at the IGPN. Why you settled for fiction film rather than documentary?
Well, because I do fiction films, and that's what I enjoy doing, and I also feel that sometimes when you treat certain subjects in fiction, it can have more impact than if you do a documentary where you have less audience. And so I knew from the beginning that I wanted it to be a fiction and a genre film, a police investigation, but that it needed to be very well documented, because it's a very touchy subject. I mean, the police violence and also this institution, the IGPN, is. I mean, it's the first time that there's a work on fiction on this about this institution, because nobody ever set foot in it, and people don't really know what they're doing, and also it's very much criticized, and that's also one of the reasons why I thought it was interesting as a fiction to imagine one of those investigators who at the same time is despised by the rest of the police because they consider them as traitors, and they're also being criticized by certain media who say, well, they cannot do their job properly because they are police officers themselves, and police officers investigating on other police officers, that's necessarily biased. And so I was interested to see how does someone who is in that tricky situation does his job properly or not properly, and I felt that it was an interesting starting point for a fiction. But of course it was very important to know more about it, and I was lucky to get the authorization to spend a few days within the IGPN, so I could really observe those police officers doing their job, and I could be there when they were auditioning other police officers, and also most important, I could talk with them, ask them questions about the specificities, no, that's not the right word, anyway, of their job and the problems of their job and how, and even technical aspects of their job, and that was really important. I also did a lot of research on certain affairs of police violence, and so, I mean, it is clearly a fiction. The case as it is, this case 137 as it is in the film, does not exist, but it's kind of pieced together with elements that I took from different cases, and all that you see in the film is in a way or another came from things that I have observed or read or documented. I mean, things like, even details like the police officers from the BRI, the buying helmets, you know, skate helmets, because they didn't have the right equipment. I mean, that is something that really happened, and things like that.
I suppose it's fiction. That what I found really very strong is that the victim and his family, they come from the same town as the character played by Lea Drucker. There's this idea that they all come from kind of the same background.
Yes, it is fiction, but again, it is based on a real situation. I mean, a lot of the Yellow Vest demonstrators had a similar social and geographical background than a lot of police officers, and actually they thought that the police would be on their side, and the government was afraid that the police would, you know, be on the side of the demonstrators. And so when I realized that, I thought that's an interesting idea to build into the fiction, and to this idea that the Stéphanie and the family of demonstrators come from the same city, and because that also is interesting in terms of the question of bias. Are you biased if you're a police officer investigating other police officers, but are you biased if you come from the same city or have some kind of link with the demonstrators? And that helped also to build the evolution of the character, who in the beginning thinks that she can do her job in a very objective way and just be concentrated on facts, and then little by little shift into something more less completely objective.
Yeah, and I have also, I'd like to know, in terms of the structure of the film, because a lot of the film is made of like close, very scientific observation of police and investigation procedures, but then this institutional language is kind of interspersed with a few really strong dialogues, very strong dialogues that are a bit reminiscent of Night of the 12th, in fact. Like, for example, between Alicia, who's the hotel cleaner, and Stéphanie, or between Guillaume's mother and Stephanie, or at the end between Stephanie and her boss. And of course, there is the last. You finish on Guillaume, who is the young man injured, and he's the real victim. And I was wondering how you wrote these sequences and placed them in the film.
Wow, that's that's the whole writing process. Though I mean, I wrote the screenplay with my colleague Gilles Marchand, with whom I've written almost all the screenplays of my films, and also the screenplays of his films. And so we just, when we work together, we talk a lot and we consider ideas and would this idea would be interesting, and exploring that other path and then seeing where it leads us. And sometimes we very early write a scene, a dialogue scene, which might also make us understand what the film, where the film might lead us. And so the screenplay kind of develops in a quite organic way, and we try to use all the elements that I found out during the research. For instance, one other thing that I observed when I was in the offices of the IGPN was that the importance of videos and of images, and how important they are in an investigation that has to do with demonstrations, because a lot of things are filmed by the CCTV, by people who film with their smartphones and put it on social media, etc., etc. And so the investigators there spend hours and hours and days trying to secure those videos, to analyze them, to see if even in the background they see things, and we felt that was something very cinematographic, and so we wanted to build the investigation on this case around those things. But then there were also, I mean, for instance, you were talking about Alicia, the chambermaid in the hotel, and I mean, this is something that we made up, but it came also from somewhere. It came from a conversation I had with an investigator from the IGPN, who told me that it was very difficult to convince witnesses to witness when it was a case of police violence, and that because they were afraid that they might have problems, and that sometimes when they were, you know, ringing on doorbells in the neighborhood asking, have you seen something, they felt that someone had seen something but didn't dare to say it, and so that there was you needed to be very you know, to work with a lot of finesse to bring them to gain their trust, and to bring them to admit that they had seen something. And so that led to the idea of this woman, this witness who had seen something from the hotel but who didn't want to see it, and then Stephanie following her in the subway, which this is clearly fiction, because I mean she's not supposed to do it, and I've never seen an investigator doing this, and even if someone had done it, he probably wouldn't have told me. So so of course there are things that we invented to make the fiction work.
Wondering if anybody has a question or comment. Oh, you can. Sorry. Sorry.
Hello, I really enjoyed the film, and I've seen the Night of the 12 before, and I really enjoy your work. The film shows clearly the complexity of the situation of this woman who's torn between being from Saint-Dizier and being also a policewoman, and it raises a lot of questions. Are there some solutions? And also there is this chambermaid who thinks there is not going to be anything done against the policeman, and in some ways in the film she's right. So have you also looked, while you were making this film, about solutions, and also is there any hope for a fair society and fair system? Like, did you look also, while you were making the film and raising all these questions and showing this complexity, did you also look at solutions or not? And yes.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be as pretentious as to say that I have the solution, but I think the solution. I mean, if there is a way of making things work better and to let's say to change that very strong conflict that exists between whole parts of the population and the police, it can only come from above. I mean, from the politicians. Of course, there is individual responsibility of police officers, you know, who commit violence that are not justified. But the problem in France is that it seems impossible for politicians to pronounce the word police violence or to say there are police officers who commit violences and this is not acceptable. And it just, they seem very much afraid that if they say that, the whole police will be against them. And especially there's the police unions. I mean, at one point in the film, there's a representative of the police unions, and the strongest police union in France is really far right. I mean, extreme right, and that's a problem. And so they are afraid that that the police will suddenly be against them, and so they don't say things, they don't say things clearly, which they should, because a lot of police officers would like to do their job properly, and it would help them if those who don't do it properly, you know, are getting kicked out of the police. But the problem it really comes from there. I mean, in the film, you can hear, I mean, understand, even if there are no politicians as characters in the film, you understand that what the politicians are saying, like saying it's a war situation, the demonstrators are all enemies of the Republic, and so you have to neutralize them, gives the police officers who enjoy violence, and there are some who do, gives them the legitimation to use the weapons that are given to them. And again, in France, I mean, the police is in Europe the police that is the most equipped in arms, in weapons. Sorry, in weapons like the riot guns, etc. And so. Yes, I think the solution can also be if at one point the politicians have the courage to, you know, to say things as they are, which doesn't mean to say that the whole police is violent, and I have problems with, you know, when people say all cops are bastards, etc. I think that, you know, that doesn't help, and that it's necessary to apaiser, how do you say that? Appease all this tension between the police and whole parts of the population, and also to give a I think that, I mean, a lot of police officers don't feel good. There is a mal-être, how would you say that? Someone has an idea? Sorry? Malaise, yeah, malaise, and malaise, and you can't solve that by giving them more weapons, but it's to give a meaning against to their job, and giving a meaning can only work if they become again a police that is truly Republican and truly in the service of the citizens and not just of the political power. So I think if there is a solution, it has to come from above. Okay.
Oh, okay.
There was a question there first, but.
Hi, I thought the power of your film lays in a completely different part of the problem. I mean, that there is a blue wall of silence. We know that everywhere. I mean, the state has the monopoly of power and the monopoly of violence, and it will only work if there's trust in the state. And the trust only works if the self-regulation of those units that are allowed to use violence against demonstrators, against criminals, against other people, are policed correctly and are policing themselves correctly. I think pointing the fingers at politicians is deflecting the real problem. What you're addressing in your film, and that I find very, very important, is that the trust in the government has broken down amongst the citizens of Saint-Denis, amongst the Gilets jaunes. People don't, as you said in your initial statement, people don't feel heard anymore. And they don't feel heard because the trust in the institution to self-regulate is not there. And I think your film shows that very powerful.
Yes, but who is regulating the institutions? I mean, the politicians are supposed to do that, because, I mean, here the IGPN is an institution within the institution that is supposed to be self-regulating the police, which is very good. But if at the same time the politicians above them who give them orders, every time a police officer is being accused of something, they try to find excuses and don't want to admit that this problem exists, I mean, that it can't work. So I think you're right, it is a problem of trust, but it has to do, it's not just on the level of the police institution, but it's the level above, I think. I mean, it's both in a way, but one doesn't work without the other, I think.
First thought was the cast of Spiral wouldn't have lasted very long with that Leah Drucker character. I thought that'd be quite interesting. My question was, having worked with that collaboration with the internal unit, I just wondered what their feedback was after having seen the film.
Well, their feedback was actually very, very good. I mean, which is kind of normal, because the character of Leah Drucker is kind of an ideal investigator from that unit, so they were quite happy about it. But I've also discussed with other police officers who are not in the IGPN, and they like the film also because it's not black and white, and it doesn't point fingers, you know, at or generalize a judgment on the police, but it says there are problems and they need to be addressed. But the reactions, even from police officers, were quite positive.
Thank you so much for the film. I really enjoyed it. Can you talk a little bit about the visual style of the film? I think it was very strong that it portrays a sort of the stress of slowness. Most of the film can really be broken down into people talking in rooms, watching videos, sending emails, and I'd just like to know how you kept us all so stressed out the whole way through.
Well, I mean, it's... yeah, I mean, of course, you're right. There are a lot of scenes with auditions in offices, and in order to keep the tension in those scenes, because there are not 25 ways to break down the shots of such a scene or to film it. I mean, mostly it's shot contre shot, shot counter shot. But in order for it to work, you have to, first of all, to write it in an interesting way, and then, of course, the actors are very important, the actors you choose, and because they bring the tension. And one of the things that was interesting when we prepared the film with Leah Drucker, at one point she asked me, can I meet investigators from the IGPN, and so I organized a meeting between her and two investigators who were two women, and so that they could exchange and she could ask questions. And one of the questions she asked was, I, as an actress, work with emotions. I mean, they are my tool. But how do you deal with emotions? I mean, when you're facing a mother who is putting down a complaint because her son has been severely wounded, or a police officer who annoys you because he's arrogant and it makes you angry, what do you do with all that? And they said, well, you can't show it because you have to remain neutral towards the people who are facing you, and also you can't allow yourself to be influenced by those emotions, because as a police investigator, they're only the facts that count. Facts, facts, facts. And at one point, she tells the prosecutor who asks her, "What's your personal opinion on the case?" And she says, "I have no personal opinion," and that's the idea of being just on the facts. But of course, they said we feel a lot of things, but we are not allowed to show them. And that was an interesting guideline for for Lea Drucker and for me directing her, to know that the audience should feel that there are a lot of things going on inside her, but that she's not allowed or supposed to show them, but still the audience should perceive them. And so it was a very subtle line. And actually the interesting thing is that the only time that she really lets herself go is not in a professional situation, but in a private one, when she's facing her mother who gets on her nerves, and she kind of yells at her. Yeah, so that was, and of course this retaining this emotion creates tension, and which is what we wanted for the whole film.
And did you have Lea Drucker in mind from the beginning? Or?
Not from the very, I mean, not when we started to work on the screenplay, but during the writing process, she really was in my mind quite a lot. And at the end, I was practically writing for her. And so as soon as the screenplay, the first draft was finished, I asked her to read it, and she said yes immediately.
Oh, there was someone else.
Hello, thank you very much. I really enjoyed the movie as well. I've got a question. You said you try hard not to generalize about the behavior of the police in your movie. Looking at the investigation by Mediapart and Libération and Sainte-Soline, do you still think the same? Would it have made a different movie?
Yes, because I mean, for those who don't know, it was during just to summarize very quickly, 2 years ago there was a demonstration against some kind of artificial lake for to stock water for the agriculture, and it was very violent, and a lot of demonstrators were severely wounded. And recently videos came out where you could see so it wasn't the national police, it was the gendarme, because in France you have the gendarme and the national police. And then so the gendarmes whom you could hear being happy that demonstrators got wounded and got hurt, and insulting them between themselves, and look at them, I hit him in the head, ha ha ha, well done, and regretting that they didn't have real guns, and I mean something really very shocking, and also, well, anyway, just to sum it up, so very, very shocking. Yes, I mean, I still wouldn't say that it is that all of police officers are like that, because I know some who say that's really impossible. I mean, that those should be investigated and punished. but again, the problem was for me more I mean, of course, it was extremely problematic. Was the reaction of the Minister of the Interior, who said, "Well, I'm not very happy about this, but I will never pronounce the words of police violence." And so I come back to what I said earlier: as long as there's not a strong, as the politicians cannot say in a very clear and strong way, this is not acceptable and this has to change. And then, of course, there's a problem of recruiting, who is being recruited, how are they being trained, how are they being supervised. I mean, there are a lot of problems, of course, and they need to be addressed, but I still wouldn't generalize, because, I mean, in that case, you can also say, what French politicians or police hierarchy do when they say people demonstrating for environment are all eco-terrorists. And that's also a generalization, and I think, you have to calm things down and to be able to start a dialogue again if you want to change things. And by, condemning things in a very general way, this will not help. But maybe I'm naive, and that's very well possible.
Hopeful. Yeah. A couple of...
Hi.
Sorry.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for such a good film. Just a couple of, to lighten up a little bit the political side.
Yes.
The footage at the beginning, is it footage you've created yourselves, or is it something that you used as actual, what actually happened on the streets in Paris, on the Champs-Élysées, etc.?
Well, most of course, the most of the videos we filmed ourselves. I mean, we staged. Of course, all the photographs that you see at one point, they are photographs from photographers who did those photographs on December 8th, 2018. In real situations. The video, for instance, of the police officer who throws a cobblestone, that is something that we did ourselves, but actually there was a real video that I had seen of a police officer throwing a cobblestone, and so we recreated that in a way. And then also all the smartphone videos that you see of the family, most of them we shot ourselves, but some of the shots I had selected before from stuff that journalists had shot, and we reframed it so that it would have the smartphone vertical format, and that we could combine them. For instance, at one point you see the family who cannot, who are stuck because there are police officers blocking a street. So the shot of the demonstrators who you see from the back and the police officers blocking a street is a pre-existing video that was in a real live situation. And the one of the demonstrators singing on est là, même si Macron ne veut pas, on est là, that is something that we shot. But most of the stuff we shot, we staged ourselves. So even the CCTV cameras, because we needed very precise things for the investigation. In one of the CCTV shots, you see the police officers, the group of the 5 walking out of focus in the background, and in the foreground you have this confrontation between demonstrators and police officers, and this we staged ourselves, yes, with extras. And
I think there were a couple more questions there.
Thank you very much for the film. A two-hander. Why Saint-Dizier? I'm assuming it's a real town, or is it actually a fictional town? And secondly,
which one? Sorry, which
Saint-Dizier?
Oh, Saint-Dizier. Okay.
And the other one, which I thought particularly well done in the film, was the way in which you embedded the cat videos and the nice little juxtaposition that the mother makes with the father about this is what I watch in order to escape all the violence that is on our smartphone screens all the time. Just wondered how you came up with that idea and integrated it into your screenplay.
Thank you. Well, Saint-Dizier is a real town. It's about 2.5 hours away from Paris if you drive towards Germany, so it's in the east. But most French people wouldn't know where it is, even if it is a 25,000 inhabitants town. And I chose it because it's typically a town that has suffered from deindustrialization. Well, anyway, you see what I mean. And where there was a lot of metal industry, and which has all closed down, and so there are a lot of unemployed people, and the Yellow Vest movement was quite strong there. And also, it's a city that has nothing typical, and which is quite anonymous, and this is what I liked about it, because that's, I mean, what the Yellow Vest movement was about. And in regard to the cat videos, well, actually it was Gilles' idea, so we should ask him, but also my co-writer. But he came up with this idea first of Stéphanie finding a cat in the basement, and we thought it was nice to have some little sweet touches in the film, which is rather harsh and the rest of the time. And then came the idea of the videos and of the cat videos. And we really like this discussion between her parents, because I mean, in a way, both are right. I mean, the mother says, well, you know, what's wrong with doing that? I enjoy it, and it's better than watching violent stuff on TV all the time. So, yes, why not? And the father says, yes, but if you spend your whole time watching cat videos, you will not realize that the democracy has disappeared. So I think, I mean, it's not to condemn people who watch kitten videos, because some of them are really nice and funny, and I enjoy some of them. And but it's also to talk about just social media. You know, the fact of course when you scroll on your smartphone. You don't scroll only cat videos, but a whole bunch of stuff, and sometimes you can jump from a cat video to a police violence video, and then back to something else. And the fact to do this and to only be on the surface of things and to have an attention span of 3 seconds per image is problematic, because a lot of people are unable to concentrate anymore on something, or to have a deeper reflection on something, and so politicians or populists who want to simplify things and or to lie, or not to see the complexity of things, it goes into their direction, and so that of course is a problem. And also we like the fact that at the end we feel that Stéphanie is almost tempted to go towards that escapism, and it's the worried look of her son that brings her back to reality in a way.
I think we have time for one last question. I think there was someone in the back earlier. No? Yes? Oh, okay, here is.
Thank you very much. I just had a question about the casting, if you could talk a bit more about it, and were all the actors professionals, or were there some non-professionals, and how difficult it was for the scenes, the interviews, which are, there's not much happening, and it's very intense. Thank you.
Well, all actors in the film are professionals, even the cats, and it's true, they have been trained. because there are two of them, the smaller one and the bigger one, because you have to see the passage of time. And but the actors were all professional, and it's not difficult because the casting process is really something that I enjoy, and I work with two great casting directors, two women, and I asked them to see a lot of candidates for each part, which they do, and so they do test videos, and then we watch them together and decide who we're going to call back, and sometimes we see them 3 times, 4 times, and also when it's, for instance, for the Stephanie's colleagues, see them not only individually, but try to imagine groups and see how they work together, which is also important, and of course it's especially tricky when you cast actors or actresses who have only one scene, because they have to exist. I mean, the character has to be there and to exist in a 2-minute scene, or sometimes even less. And so there also it's important to choose the right people who have a personality and that will create immediately a character. But then it's a question of also of intuition, and sometimes this guy, you can't explain why you prefer this actor to this other actor, but it's just that it works for you, and the other one works less. And then there are also, like, when you constitute the family of the demonstrator, you also have to believe in the fact that there are brothers and sisters, and the mother is their mother, and so there are also some physical aspects that can also come into consideration. But it's really a great process that I enjoy a lot, and yes, I don't know what to say much more, but I also encourage the casting directors to see people that are. But most of the actors, except Lea Drucker, are not very well known. I mean, or not known at all to the general public. And I like that, even when I see screen tests with people who I've never seen before. So I have no, prejudices or whatever, and I just discover them as they are, or what they suggest in their acting. And so that is something that's quite exciting also.
Thank you very much, Dominik Moll.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you.